Hi, everyone. My name is Arbaz Surti. And first of all, I wanted to thank everyone for being here. I know for a few of the folks, it might be late in the day for them. So I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to be here with me. Okay, let's begin. My talk is titled The Lost Art of Prompt Engineering: How to Make AI Work for Testers Again. Now, we keep hearing that prompt engineering is dead. According to me, it's not. It's just misunderstood. And in QA, it's actually your unfair advantage. If you think about it, testers already work in this way. Think about it. We write preconditions, steps, expected results, and edge cases. That's exactly the discipline large language models respond to. Over the next 20 to 25 minutes, I'm going to show you how a simple framework with using roles, context, and constraints can turn generic AI into a reliable partner that you can use for test design, exploratory charters, and even bug triaging. You'll see side-by-side results of generic prompts versus structured prompts, and you'll leave with templates that you can use in your very next sprint. All right, with that said, let's dive in. Agenda and promise. So here's where we're going today. First, we look at why testers should even care about prompt engineering in the first place. I'll then walk you through a simple framework, roles, context, and constraints that makes all the difference. We'll bring that to life with a short demo, and then I'll share some practical prompting techniques that you can start using right away. And finally, I'll point you to ready-to-use templates and resources so that you don't have to start from scratch. And my promise to you today is simple. You'll walk out of this session with concrete prompting patterns that you can put into practice into your QA work immediately. Okay, let's move on. So why is prompt engineering, according to me, almost a QA skill? So here's the big thesis of my talk today. Prompt engineering isn't some exotic new skill. It's actually something testers are already wired to do. Think about how we write test cases. We say step one, do this, and under certain conditions, expect that. That's structured, precise language. In other words, it's already a mini prompt. Large language models crave that same structure. If we feed them vague instructions, we'll get back vague answers. But when we give them clear roles, context, and constraints, just like we do in test cases, the quality of the output shoots up. So QA's superpower has always been this, right? We take fuzzy requirements and turn them into something that's testable. And prompt engineering is just a modern extension of that same mindset. Okay, moving from generic prompts to a QA framework. Now let's dig into the core problem. Why do most testers walk away unimpressed after they've tried ChatGPT or another LLM for their testing tasks? It comes down to this. Generic prompts will give you generic results. Here's a classic example. Let's say I type write test cases for a login page. What do you think will come back? Maybe a list of a few scenarios where you'll have, say, a valid login, invalid password, empty fields, etc. Now, this looks fine if you're brand new to QA testing, but for us seasoned QA folks, it's surface level. It will miss edge cases, risk areas, data variations, prioritization, all the things that we actually care about. And that's where the disappointment sets in. People assume the AI just isn't good enough at testing. But the truth is, the problem isn't the AI, it's just the way we ask. And that's why I've come up with what I'm calling the QA prompting framework. It's definitely not rocket science. It's just three simple elements, but together they change everything. So let's go through them one by one. First, role. Who should the AI be when answering? If I don't define a role, It answers like a generic assistant. But let's say I say you're a senior QA engineer with expertise in exploratory testing for web apps. Suddenly, you'll see that the tone, the depth, and the priorities will shift. And the AI adopts that persona and starts to think more like us. Second, context. This is the meat of it. What is the system under test? What are the risks? What are the requirements? If I just say login page, the AI is blind. But if I add the login uses OAuth, it requires two-factor authentication and must work across both desktop and mobile. Now, the AI has background knowledge. It knows what matters and what could break. Third, constraints. Now, this is where testers shine because we already think in terms of structure. So instead of saying just give me test cases, I can say generate a list of 15 test scenarios, split them into positive, negative, and edge cases, output them in a table with steps, expected results, and a risk priority score. When I combine role, context, and constraints, the results will transform. The same AI that gave me, say, 5 obvious test cases before will now give me 15 nuanced ones that will be organized in a format that I can use immediately in my sprint. And here's what I want you to notice though. Testers already think in this way. When we write test steps, when we log bugs, when we design exploratory charters, we're naturally precise with roles, preconditions, and expected results. Prompt engineering then isn't some alien new skill. It's actually our native language. The framework is what just makes it explicit so that we can get repeatable, high quality outputs from the AI instead of rolling the dice every time. In a moment, I'll show you this in action with a side-by-side demo. We'll go with a generic prompt versus a structured prompt using this framework. And that's where the light bulb usually goes off. All right, so let's move to the most exciting slide, the demo slide. So we've talked a lot about how generic prompts can lead to generic results, right? But let's see this in action because when you see it, you can't unsee it. So here's a setup. Imagine you're testing something very common, a login page. Nothing fancy, just a username, a password field, and some basic rules like password complexity and say a lockout after 3 failed attempts. Now, if I go to ChatGPT or any other LLM and I type this generic prompt, let's see what happens. Here I have a YouTube video. Let me click into that and expand this. So you'll see the first prompt I have here is a generic one. It's come up with functional scenarios. It's going on to security scenarios, usability, and edge cases. Okay. Now, you might think this is not too bad, right? But if you think about it, it still gave me a very broad surface level checklist. Things like check username and password inputs, right? Invalid credentials, check login success. And these are fine, but they're nothing that you couldn't have come up with in, say, 5 minutes on your own, right? And this is the danger of using AI with lazy prompts. You end up with outputs that's not wrong, but it's not really usable. It's generic, repetitive, and it doesn't really push your thinking forward. Now let's try it again. This time we'll use a structured prompt. Let me click into this, expand this out. Okay, so this time you'll see that my prompt is much more structured, right? It had role, context, constraints. I'm asking it to output in terms of a table, which will have different columns. And let's see what it comes up with. Okay, so you'll see it's created a table. It's got a test ID, a category, input, output, action, risk areas. Still going. And it's even given me high-value automation candidates. All right. Pretty cool, right? So I hope you took a look at the difference, right? Instead of vague checklists, we suddenly had something that testers can actually use. And the results were organized, specific, and actionable. It had stuff like logging in with edge case passwords, simulating multiple failed attempts, validating session, post login, etc. Very different when compared to the generic version. So what just happened? Did the AI suddenly get smarter? No. The change wasn't the AI, the change was the prompt. We gave it a clear role, context, constraints on how to respond, and we were able to turn it from a generic assistant into a focused QA collaborator. And this is why prompt engineering is such a valuable QA skill, because it's not about knowing which AI model is better or which model is better equipped to handle QA tasks. It's about knowing how to speak its language in a way that brings out your domain expertise. Now, here's the question I want to leave you with before we move on. Which of those two outputs would you rather use tomorrow morning when starting your exploratory session? The generic test list or a structured one that you saw that highlights actionable test ideas along with those automation candidates? And hopefully this demo was able to show to you the core of our thesis. Structured prompts can turn AI into an accelerator for QA. All right, let's log that in and move to the next topic. Okay, AI in QA workflow. So how are the different ways that AI can help us? Let's take a step back and see where AI can plug in to the QA workflow as a whole. We can start with test planning. So instead of opening a blank page, you can use AI to brainstorm test objectives, scope, and risks, right? It gives you a first draft that you can refine, saving you a lot of setup time. Next is a scenario generation. Instead of starting from scratch, AI can quickly help you brainstorm coverage, ensuring that you don't miss obvious or edge cases. Then comes test case detailing, where AI can take a scenario and it can expand it into clear steps, inputs, and expected outcomes, ready for execution or automation. Bug reporting and triage. AI can rewrite raw bug notes into a structured developer-friendly report and even help you prioritize that by impact. Automation and test data. AI can suggest code snippets for your framework or generate realistic test data on the fly. And finally, reporting and metrics. AI can summarize test results, highlight trends, and create visual dashboards so stakeholders can get clear insights without you spending hours on formatting. So you'll see that across the QA lifecycle, AI acts less like a replacement and more like an accelerator, helping you move faster and focus on higher value activities instead. Okay, now that we looked at the framework, let's zoom in on a few specific techniques that really bring it to life for QA work. The first one is role prompting. We've seen this already, right? This is where you explicitly tell the AI who to be. Instead of just saying write test cases, you might say act as a senior QA engineer with expertise in API testing. And that little shift changes the lens the AI uses and often will produce realistic, risk-aware scenarios. The second technique is decomposition. Many QA tasks, if you think about it, are too big to solve in one go, right? If I just ask, generate all edge cases for checkout, the AI might miss important areas. But if I decompose the task, first asking it to list risk areas, then asking it to create test cases for each risk area, and then prioritizing them, I get more thorough coverage. It mirrors exactly how we testers already think, step by step. And the third is structured outputs. This is where constraints really shine. By asking for results in a table, like we did in Demo 2, JSON, or a standard test charter format, you get something usable right away. So it's no longer just a wall of text, it's a format that you can slot into your workflow or even your automation scripts. And here's a bonus tip. This is one of my favorites, self-evaluation. You can actually ask the AI, review your own scenarios, and point out any missing high-risk areas. I've done this with another LLM, where I asked the other one to review the outputs from the first one. It's not perfect, but it often will surface gaps that you wouldn't catch otherwise. And together, these techniques turn prompting from trial and error into a repeatable process that will map directly onto your QA tasks. All right, let's move on. Systematizing and privacy. So one of the most common questions I get is how do we make prompting consistent across a whole QA team, right? Because if every tester is reinventing prompts on the fly, you don't get repeatability, you'll just get chaos. So my idea is this, think of prompts the same way we think of regression test suites. They're reusable assets. So if you design a great prompt for generating exploratory charters, let's say, don't just keep it to yourself. Save it as a template, put it in a shared repo, encourage the team to adapt it and evolve it. That way, sprint after sprint, you aren't starting from scratch. You're building on proven patterns. And this also makes onboarding easy for new testers, new members that come onto the team, because they now have a starting point for how to use AI effectively in QA. Now let's address the elephant in the room, privacy. Most companies are understandably nervous about pasting proprietary requirements or using user data straight into ChatGPT. And of course, they're right to be cautious. The good news is that there are practical ways to manage this. First, we can use redacted inputs or synthetic data when working with public models. You don't need to feed in real customer records to design your test scenarios. Second, for organizations that might have even stricter needs, you can look into on-premise or private LLMs. Many vendors will now allow companies to run models securely without data leaving the file. And the point here is this, AI can be both powerful and can also be used responsibly. If we systematize prompting and respect privacy concerns, we can scale these practices effectively across teams without putting sensitive information at risk. All right, the 5 golden rules. Before we dive deeper, let me give you the 5 golden rules that I always keep in mind when prompting for QA. We've seen this already, but this will help solidify it. First, be specific. Vague prompts will only give vague answers, and clarity is everything. Give role and context. Don't just say test this. Say act as a senior QA engineer reviewing a checkout flow, right? This is what will change the depth of your response. Third, break it down. If the task is big, decompose it into steps. Smaller prompts will give you better results than one overloaded monster prompt. Fourth, ask for structure, tables, bullet points, JSON, whatever works for your workflow. Structured output is what will make your results usable. And fifth, iterate and self-check. Don't expect magic on the first try. Refine, tweak, and even ask the model to critique its own output. 5 rules, they're simple, repeatable, and they will change how you. All right, so let's wrap this up. We've seen today that prompt engineering isn't just a passing trend, it's a QA skill. According to me, it's here to stay. And like any skill, it gets stronger the more you practice. So here's my call to action for you. Don't wait until you have the perfect setup. Just start experimenting with structured prompts. Even small improvements will save you hours. Second, I've put together some free templates and a repo you can access. And grab the link right here in the presentation. These will give you tested starting points for exploratory charters, scenario generation, and more. In fact, since this is right here, let me open this up. Okay, so this first one, you'll see it's a structured prompt. It says test scenario generation. It'll allow you to place in your own personalized features or other data that will make this more personalizable to your own scenario. Test case detailing, bug report writing, test data creation, exploratory testing ideas, automation assistance, and if you keep moving down, I've even got one for interview prep. Okay, and the third thing I want you to do is apply any one of these to one live test this week. That will mean a lot to me. The key is you don't need to be an AI expert to use this. You just need to think like a QA. And that brings us to the end of my session. I hope you're walking away with a few prompts or a few ideas that you can try out as soon as tomorrow. I'd love to continue the conversation on LinkedIn. Feel free to send me an invite. And for now, happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you. There's actually several questions and a request. First of all,
Sure.
there's a request about the template links.
Oh, okay.
Talked about, popped up twice. And so if you can, I don't know if they're on the presentation, which we will be sharing, but if they're on the presentation, then that will be okay. And if not, let's see how we can, if that's okay with you, how we can share those.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So they're in the presentation, and I don't know if you'll be sharing this with the
We
participants.
will be sharing the presentation. So if they're in the presentation, then all good. If you can point to, okay, so that will be, if you can point to where they are. I think maybe you mentioned that, but it wasn't clear.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Latest
So it was in the word that said here.
here. Okay, so
Yeah,
that's just for people
that's
who
where
are
the link is. And I've made sure that if someone has the link, they'll be able to view it as well. So
amazing.
no access issues, I promise.
So that was the first, actually the last one. But there were previous questions about prompting and about if you can advise how you can prompt to eliminate, or I would say to reduce hallucinations.
Mm. The advice I have for that is, so first of all, recently, OpenAI has understood more deeply why hallucination occurs. And so in future models, that will happen less and less often. The advice to reduce hallucination, and I won't say stop it completely because that's kind of difficult because the AI has a brain of its own, is to give it more detailed prompting. So be very specific with the kind of prompts that you want to give it. If you just follow all of the rules that I mentioned in my presentation and keep all those different prompting techniques in mind, you will be golden. There's also a research paper that one of the foremost prompt engineers in the world has released recently that talks about other techniques like chain of thought prompting that you could use. And maybe what I could do is share that research paper with you after this. Those kind of techniques are also very helpful.
Okay, yeah, I think that would be very good. And there was a question, I'm not sure about the context of the way it was asked, about temperature that you talked, if you can specify that.
I don't know. So I focus mainly on using a chat interface. So using Chat GPT for prompting. And I don't know if a paid version has ability for you to change the temperature, but you can certainly do it if you're using their API.
Okay.
And with temperature, it's got a vague definition as to what it can do, but the best way I've found to try to see if it will match to what you want it to do is to change the value. So just like we perform boundary value analysis in a sense, it has a particular range. So let's say it starts at 0.1, set it to that and see what the output is like, and then move all the way across to 0.9 and see what the output it gives you then, and see what you prefer. So temperature is more about you assessing whether it fits your needs than understanding what temperature exactly means. because it can have a very technical definition, but I'm a big fan of trying to use AI for what you want it to do.